Very excited. The CEO of Assent Compliance, Andrew Wakeman. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Andrew, now let's talk a little bit about what this company has done over the last few years. It's almost, you would almost think this company's been around for tens of years, but it really has only just been a few years, but you've done so much. And if you do not know who Assent Compliance just yet is, that is why we wanted you here on the show, because we think you are one of those amazing companies that we think has been under the radar.
Under the radar.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. So we want to change that, and we want to tell the world of what's happening. So we're going to talk a little bit firstly about your recent capital that's been raised, your Series B funding that's $40 million, which is a big chunk of change. But there is a big reason for all of this, because your company has done so much over a short space of time. But let's just clear everything up. Let's start from the beginning. Share with us firstly, what is Assent Compliance? Who are you? What is your mandate? What do you focus on? Because I don't think a lot of people understand regulatory compliance and how is that a market and how do we build a brand in that?
Right. Okay, yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you this morning. So Assent Compliance, the very simplest thing to think about is we're a data company, okay? So what that means is we collect data on behalf of very large companies from their supply chains. Now you say, okay, that's fine, but what data? Well, a lot of it is regulatory data, but it's not exclusively regulatory data. So let me give you some examples, okay? We participate in 3 areas. Product compliance, okay? So what does product compliance mean? It means that your product needs to abide by rules to be sold into certain jurisdictions, okay? Those rules are around restricted substances, okay? Those rules are around certain toxic substances and so on. So you can't ship your product into Europe unless you can certify that it contains below certain amounts or none of certain restricted substances. So that means you have to get information from your supply chain related to that product compliance. That's one, okay? Corporate social responsibility is the second major area, okay? Corporate social responsibility has to do with treating labor rules, avoiding human trafficking in your supply chain, labor standards. There's a lot of rules around that the extended enterprise, okay? It used to be that companies could control everything that was going on within their company, but companies are now large global supply chains, okay? And they can get in trouble both legally and reputationally if they have behaviors going on in their supply chain which they would not support themselves. And so we help them assess where the risk is in those supply chains. So corporate social responsibility. And then the third area is the area called vendor risk management, okay? So vendor management, so if you engage, if you're a large Fortune 500 company, I have to be careful about naming names because we deal with very large companies. They want to know, if you're a new vendor, do you have a good security regime, okay? And you have to attest to that. And maybe you need to attest to that every year. And if you've answered questions in certain ways, they may want to audit you. So what we do is help them get that information, okay? You may need insurance certifications from your suppliers, okay? So our customers are the largest. You would recognize, and most people would recognize, our list of customers. They're very large. They have very large supply chains. These supply chains are global. We currently have 350,000 companies, and we're rapidly moving towards 1 million companies, which we currently get data from. And we're automating it using a cloud solution. So yes, we're cloud. Yes, we're SaaS. Yes, we're risk management. Yes, we're a data company. So when some people think of regulation as a niche, it isn't. Every single industry, financial, retail, oil and gas, aerospace, defense, they're all regulated in different ways. And what we are doing is functions that are done internally, extremely tediously, extremely arduous, extremely manual, we're automating that process. We're providing enormous economies of scale by doing that as a central network. So that, just as an example, if we collect the information from this supplier, there's likely many customers of ours who need that. So we collect once and then leverage across our customer base. So it is a true network effect business. So while some people see us as a compliance or regulation company, we're actually a data company, and we're facilitating a very exciting efficiency so that companies can prove that they're doing good and doing well. Okay, so in other words, they're abiding by the fair rules that have been established, and these rules are being established in Asia, the rules are being established in Europe, the rules are being established in the United States. So some regulations, for example, you may have heard is conflict minerals. Okay, we don't want business to promote warlords, okay, in the Congo. Okay, so companies are trying to avoid using gold, tin, tungsten, or tantalum from Congo. Okay, and so we help companies find in the supply chain where their risks are of them potentially using smelters that are on the bad side. But we cover over 1,000 different areas of data and regulation in the product compliance, corporate social responsibility, and vendor risk management. It's a very, very exciting play, and obviously a very big play.
I can feel the enthusiasm and just the excitement about talking, and thank you for clarifying that, because that really that really clears it up of what the company specializes in now. And I can understand why you are where you are now. I mean, you have undergone so much growth in such a short space of time, and I'd like you maybe just to kind of talk us a little bit through that first round. Yeah. So yes. So why this company came to fruition, and then maybe how you got to that first round of funding, and maybe how that first round of funding has now kind of set up the second round of funding.
It's a great question. Absolutely. So you have to always go to the origin story, and the investors always want to know the origin story, okay? And yeah, and the origin story, well, it's unique, and I don't know if you know, but we have an Olympic-sized boxing ring in our office, okay? I think we're the only company in the world that has that. So the origin story is probably related to boxing, which it is, okay? So two of the founders owned a boxing gym. And the third founder actually is the founder that the idea came from. And the individual who is a sales individual, John Hughes, he basically saw an opportunity working at another company, went to that very large company, and they were more of a services company, and he said, this needs to be automated, this needs to be, and he's not a techie guy, he's just like, this is crazy, okay? And he was in the back of a cab with the other founder, Matt, who is a boxer, and Matt's like, that can't be that hard to do, we can do that, okay? And the three of them, so the third guy was the technical guy, the three of them created this company, okay? And they created it a number of years ago, and they were having success. But as you can appreciate, when you're selling to Fortune 500, the requirements are quite high, okay? Unlike most SaaS, which starts selling to SMB or B2C or small B2B, you can make a lot of mistakes, and you could churn out a few, and it doesn't kill you. Whereas you can't do that when you're dealing, there's only 500 Fortune 500, right? So you better not piss them off. And so, right, and they talk exactly. So what happened was, and this is where you need serendipity. All successful companies have a certain amount of serendipity, okay? And in that serendipity, for me, finding Assent and Assent finding me, I left my previous firm. I used to run a company called Pythian, and I was boxing with Matt. And Matt's like, what? What? You left Pythian? And we chatted about it, and he said, well, would you check out what we're doing here? And much like I did at Pythian when I went in, I volunteered, okay, for 4 months, because I wanted to check it. I needed them to check me out. I wanted them to check. So no risk, eh? So if you don't take a salary. Anyway, long story short, I was amazed at, they had Fortune 500 customers. They had some traction. Now they had issues, okay, because they were growing, and they needed, and what I brought to the table was the ability to put a leadership team together rather quickly, engage with both BDC and investors rather quickly, and essentially accelerate what they would have done over quite a number of years. But I was able to help them do it very quickly, okay, like rapidly. Like we've been on 100% plus growth since I joined, okay? And so when you're going to grow that quickly, you do need capital. You do need relationships with Royal Bank, BDC, the investor Volition that came into the Series A. And the reason that they want to see that there's good structure, process, organization, thought to how you're going from this embryo to, you know, a good startup doing some reasonable things, and then how you're going to scale it. And the unusual part about the Series A, which was last May 2016, so nearly a year later to Series B, was the firm that we went with, that invested with us, they actually called us, and they had a thesis around supply chain. And that thesis is playing out, okay, is that there's a lot of business opportunity that is not being pursued by, let's say, Silicon Valley's, top tier firms, because it's a complex and hard to understand. And most of the conversations that go on for Silicon Valley VCs go on at companies between 0 and 100 million. But supply chain stuff is happening at, 250 million to, $100 billion companies. And so as a result, the VCs aren't always as aware. But this company had kind of stumbled, this investor had looked into this area, and there's a lot of like automation opportunities in this area. And as a result, they engaged with us. We presented a compelling thesis of growth, of expanding the platform, of engaging. We had Fortune 500 companies, and they invested. And what that allowed us to do with the Series A was rapidly increase our product team, QA, development, data, and that put us on a really strong product trajectory. And then we needed to demonstrate that we could ramp up marketing and sales. And one of the things that the founder was very strong at, Matt, was marketing. And he had really kind of raised the profile with our customers of Assent compliance. And so we got, I would say, all the cylinders firing. And so we started to get a lot of outside interest for the Series B, such that we had multiple term sheets, okay? And when you have multiple term sheets, turning them down, because it wasn't our timing, we were planning actually to raise later this year, early next year, but you don't, there's moments in time when people want to invest, if you can get the valuation you want, if they see the execution. So everything came together. The lead investor assured us, they gave us the best terms, okay, of the 4 term sheets, and they assured us they could close the deal in 30 days, and they did. And so that allows us to then focus on execution. And so today, we're in an enviable position in front of a very large market space. And what the investors see and what we see is we're quite ahead of the crowd, okay? Because the world is starting to realize that you need to automate this, and there's not any other player who's thought about this in a global kind of solution. There's a lot of point solutions out there, a lot of mom and pops, but nobody's thought about this in as ambitious a way as we have. And the investors are convinced that we can be a category winner. And with Shopify, a category winner, it's, winner takes most, okay, if not all. And so we probably are 6 years behind Shopify. I think, as you pointed out, we have raised very strong Series A, strong Series B, and now we really have to execute for the next couple of years.
Wow, that's a fascinating story, and thank you once again for just lining that all up for us. As I mentioned and alluded to earlier, yes, your Series A was really large, your Series B was really large, both larger than Shopify. But once again, a company like Shopify once again has set that standard for us, not just as a city, but as an industry, and once again show us of what is capable. So your next step, I believe, a part of really what's part of this funding as well, for you to expand over the Atlantic and going into Europe as well, and kind of setting yourself into that market. Maybe you can share with us a little bit what kind of your strategy is, or what you're looking at your strategy for Europe, and how what we have here as Assent compliance here in Canada can give you that cutting edge moving over into that realm.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And obviously investors want to understand how their money is going to be invested. And the great thing, there's so many great things about Shopify, but one of them is that it's a truly global play. Like 170 countries are buying from Shopify, which is fantastic, right? For Canada, for Ottawa, et cetera, et cetera. And obviously Toby's building, a lot of presence in Toronto, in Ottawa. So for us, and one distinction, so Shopify is in the high transaction business, okay, from a SaaS perspective, so high volume. We're in the high value business. So per year, we would only expect to get a few hundred customers, okay? So we're expecting to sell a lot to a few number of customers. A very different model. It's actually a very tough model. Because statistically, if you're in the high volume business, as long as the TAM, the total addressable market, is there, you got a lot of fish to go catch, right? Whereas when you're in the high value, you have to demonstrate value to a much smaller number of companies. Now, okay, so your question with regards to the investment thesis. The investment thesis is to truly expand globally. So there was a little bit of the investment thesis was to continue to expand the product, expand what data types we can collect. But the big one was the geographic expansion. So what we've done is focused in the past on U.S. Customers. Very large. And as I say, I'm not, for brand sensitive reasons, I'm not allowed to name the customers, but they're all Fortune 500. They're all brand recognizable. We are starting to have success in Europe, but from Canada. And that has challenges because a lot of sales needs face-to-face, and so you need a presence there. So our initial foray into Europe is already starting. We have an outbound inside sales team. We have AEs, account executives, who are flying to Europe to close business. We have British and German customers, and we have supply chains all over Europe, in which we interact with. But the emphasis of the investment is to expand our, what you would call air cover, so marketing programs, everything from AdWords, web, so we want web localization. Like if you're trying to sell into Germany at scale, you need to look like a German company. And that means your website needs to look like a German company with all German idioms, etc. And whether you're going into Italy next, or whether you're going to France or Britain. So we need to invest in that. And then we obviously need to invest in people, Because when you're selling like $500,000 to millions of dollars per customer, you need face time. You need for them, and you mentioned this earlier, it is about trust, it is about credibility, it is about them getting to know you, because these organizations do not add new vendors easily, And so you need that kind of presence there so that I can trust you to be my data collection partner, my compliance partner for the next 20, 30, 40 years. And it's that type of scale that we're engaged with. But we already have some really fantastic, and I'd love to be able to mention them, but I have to be careful. We have some fantastic clients from the UK and Germany already, which is awesome.
Yes, I think you're clearly, as you said, because you're in the high value business, that confidence and credibility in what you do as a company is so important. And I understand completely the face-to-face, which is so important as well. And as you said, once again, once you make that relationship, you build that relationship and they have committed with you, this is not something that you'll use for 1 year. This is exactly, which is extremely, once again, very valuable and also very enticing to investors as well, because your customer base is committed to you and you're committed to them, which is extremely powerful. So thank you so much, Andrew, for taking the time to share a little bit more about this company. Clearly, we have to keep our eye on you because you're moving really super fast and doing some amazing things. For those of you that's watching this on Techopia Live, we did 2 segments here today, and this is our second segment with the CEO of Assent Compliance, Andrew Waitman. Thank you so much for taking the time today. Wish you nothing but the best. Continue to do the great work that you were doing. And I'll just finish up with this last question maybe. As a company that, once again, you're not in Canada, you're not in Invest Ottawa.
Downtown.
Exactly, or in the market. Exactly. But you're exactly. You're up St. Laurent Boulevard, which is, once again, tucked away, and that's why it's so exciting to speak to you. But it's a clear indication, once again, good product, good team.
Great market.
Yes, exactly. Finding a niche market, processes in place, all these things are in place, and you have systematically put those pieces. Maybe how do you feel as once again, someone that's come from another company as well, and being involved in investing in other companies, how does that excite you to be a part of a company like this, and maybe what does it mean for Ottawa as a city and Canada as a country?
Well, there's no question. Like what is going on in tech in Ottawa, and as you know, various centers around North America, but particularly Waterloo, Toronto, everybody's trying to get attention that they're the tech hub, Montreal with its AI and so on. But ultimately, success speaks, In other words, people can say things, but ultimately, how are the companies doing? Who are they? And how big are they? And so, obviously, Kinaxis, I don't know if you know, though, Mitel, you just had Steve here. Kinaxis is doing phenomenally. There's some really excellent success, and there's a lot of, whether it's in Canada or whether it's other places of Ottawa, there is a lot of excellent work being done in the city. There's a lot of excellent growth. And so from my perspective, there's a critical mass that needs to happen, okay? And I strive to build what I call $100 million companies because they survive any bad economies or a bad wind or whatever. So you need, and you want global companies. You really want to talk about raising wages. You want to talk about raising wealth for countries. You need to build export businesses, okay? You can't just build local. Like, local is important, but you need them to be healthy based on having global business in your backyard. And I think it's great that Toby's hiring as much as he is in Ottawa. We are hiring quite actively, and we'll continue to with our success. We'll try and catch up with him, but he's got a 6-year head start. But it is good for the economy. It's good for what's the word I was looking for? The brand, okay? The brand of Ottawa, and that we can build some very world-class, successful high-tech companies. And I think, and Toby and Harley are already doing this, is helping the next generation by seeing that success, okay? And some of those lessons that learn. Because as you know, like, if manufacturing leaves your city, it's not just the manufacturing, it's all the supply chains and knowledge of that disappears. And so the benefit from Ottawa, when we have great SaaS companies as an example, is the trickle-down effects, okay? What does it mean to market SaaS, okay? Whether it's a B2C or a B2B. What does it mean to, build, like, I've got probably one of the best sales teams and sales creation, lead generation teams in the city, okay? In fact, I have a Fortune 500 company come study us, okay? Which is really awesome, okay? But that knowledge, and we have a lot of millennials, which is awesome because they are learning as we're growing at speed. They're watching what's going on. Some of them are being promoted, and then they will go on and create the next healthy generation, and you'll see that in Shopify. So, I think success is always a great thing for a city. It attracts investors. It attracts people. We have more affordable housing than Toronto. I was just there last week. So I do think for the system that is a healthy system in Ottawa, there's a lot of really, really exciting stuff going on. And, I think it's great that you guys help promote that, because we do need to talk about the winners so that we're not just saying we're winners, but people see we have winners. So good work on your part.
Thank you so much for taking the time today, Andrew. So once again, for you guys, thank you so much for joining us here on Techopia. Make sure that you stay tuned. Go on techopia.ca to check out these videos. You can watch this here on Facebook. You can watch it online as well. And stay tuned as we do this each and every single Monday. And stay tuned for the fall, as Techopia Live will actually continue to increase. And we'll be doing this twice a week on both Mondays and Wednesdays with new content, fresh content, talking more about amazing business. Thank you so much.